The Galactic Military Academy's main auditorium buzzed with nervous energy as cadets from 12 different species filled the curved rows of seats. The air recycling systems worked overtime to accommodate the various atmospheric requirements, creating a slight haze that caught the holographic displays floating above the stage. Commander Zixtal of the Hegemony Defense Corps stood at the podium, her four arms gesturing gracefully as she addressed the mixed crowd of future officers. Her scaled hide gleamed under the artificial lighting, and her voice carried the authority of someone who had seen actual combat in the Outer Rim conflicts. "Today we discuss tactical assessments and threat evaluation," she announced, her translator device rendering her words in a dozen different languages simultaneously. "Understanding your enemy's capabilities is the difference between victory and becoming space debris." A young Cathari cadet in the third row raised a tentacle. "Commander, we've studied the major powers extensively. The Hegemony's shock troops, the Valdoran battle mechs, even the Zephyrian swarm tactics. But there's one species that keeps appearing in our tactical databases with incomplete information." Commander Zixtal's secondary eyes focused on the cadet while her primary eyes scanned the room. She knew where this was heading. "Specify your inquiry, Cadet Velnash." "The humans, ma'am. The Terrans. We know they joined the Galactic Council only 50 standard cycles ago, but their military data is heavily classified. Most of our professors avoid discussing them in detail." A ripple of interest swept through the auditorium. Several cadets leaned forward, their various sensory organs focusing intently on the commander. The humans were indeed an enigma, a relatively new species that had somehow earned a seat on the council despite their youth and their homeworld being classified as a Class 9 death world. Commander Zixtal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. She had hoped to avoid this topic, but perhaps it was time these young officers learned the truth. "Very well. What specifically would you like to know about human military capabilities?" Another cadet, this one from the insectoid Chixari Collective, spoke up. "Their individual combat effectiveness, Commander. We've heard conflicting reports. Some say they're barely above primitive, others claim—" The cadet's compound eyes glittered nervously. "Others claim things that seem impossible." The commander's tail swished behind her, a sign of discomfort that those familiar with her species would recognize. She accessed her personal datapad and projected several holographic displays above the assembled students. "Let me ask you all a question first," she said, her tone becoming more serious. "What do you consider an acceptable kill-to-death ratio for an elite soldier in personal combat?" The cadets exchanged glances. A Valdoran student with metallic skin answered first. "For our siege guards, we consider 301 to be excellent in infantry combat situations. Our nest warriors typically achieve 2.1 in close quarters," added the Chixari cadet. "The Hegemony's finest stormtroopers average 4.1 in extended campaigns," offered another student proudly. Commander Zixtal nodded slowly. "These are indeed impressive ratios, achieved by some of the galaxy's most feared warriors after decades of training and genetic optimization." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the auditorium. "Now let me show you something that was declassified just last cycle." The main holographic display shifted, showing what appeared to be a battlefield assessment report. The header read, "Combat Effectiveness Analysis, Human Marine Corps, 3rd Battalion. This is from the Kepler Station incident 18 months ago," the commander continued. "A small human outpost was attacked by Ravager pirates, the same criminals who had been terrorizing the outer systems for years. The station had a garrison of exactly 47 human Marines. The display showed tactical readouts, unit positions, and casualty reports. The cadets studied the information intently, trying to process what they were seeing. The Ravager force numbered approximately 800 combat effectives, using standard shock assault tactics. They had superior numbers, better equipment, and the advantage of choosing when and where to attack. Commander Zixtal's voice took on a clinical tone. The human Marines had basic kinetic weapons, standard body armor, and no air support. A hegemony cadet raised one of her arms. What was the outcome, Commander? Did the humans request evacuation support? The commander's expression grew grim. The humans sent one transmission after the attack began. It was 7 words long. She highlighted a section of the report. Kepler Station, under attack. Send cleanup crew. The auditorium fell silent. Several cadets' breathing apparatus could be heard cycling in the quiet. Send cleanup crew? Repeated Cadet Velnash, confusion evident in his translator's interpretation. The battle lasted 6 hours and 43 minutes, Commander Zixtal continued. When Council forces arrived 3 days later, they found the station intact and fully operational. All 47 Marines were alive and accounted for. She paused, letting the implications sink in. They found 796 Ravager corpses scattered across the station's outer levels, corridors, and landing bays. 4 Ravagers had been taken prisoner. Of the 47 human defenders, 14 had sustained injuries. None had died. The silence in the auditorium was now complete. Even the atmospheric recycling systems seemed to quiet. A Zephyrian cadet in the back, her feathers ruffled with agitation, called out, "Commander, that's impossible. The mathematics don't work. Even with perfect defensive positions and unlimited ammunition." "I thought the same thing," the commander replied, "which is why I requested the full tactical breakdown from Human Command. What I learned changed everything I thought I knew about warfare." She brought up a new display showing individual Marine positions throughout the battle. Each human Marine averaged 16.9 confirmed kills during the engagement. The human designated as Sergeant Martinez personally accounted for 38 Ravager casualties while defending a corridor junction, alone, for 2 hours. The cadets began murmuring among themselves in their various languages, creating a polyglot buzz of disbelief and fascination. "But, Commander," interjected the Valdoran student, "humans don't have natural armor, enhanced reflexes, or any of the biological advantages that make warriors effective. How is this possible?" Commander Zixtal's mandibles clicked again, and she seemed to choose her words carefully. That question led me to request a meeting with the human military attaché at the Council headquarters. What he told me about their species? It explains much about why their homeworld is classified as it is. She changed the display to show an image of Earth, a blue and green world that looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. "You see, class, we've been thinking about human combat effectiveness all wrong. We've been comparing them to other civilized species, measuring them against warriors who fight when necessary, who view combat as an unfortunate necessity or a tool of policy." The commander's 4 eyes swept across the assembled cadets. "But humans evolved on a world where literally everything was trying to kill them. Not just predators, the weather, the geography, the microscopic life, even the plants. They didn't develop civilization despite their homeworld's hostility. They developed it because of it." A new image appeared, a human Marine in standard combat gear, looking unremarkable compared to the impressive physical specimens of other species' warriors. When we look at a human Marine, we see a small, soft, seemingly fragile creature with no natural weapons. When a human Marine looks at any combat situation, they see just another Tuesday on the world that forged them. The commander paused, studying the faces of her students. Fear, fascination, and disbelief warred in their expressions. "Tomorrow we'll discuss exactly what this means for modern warfare, and I'll tell you about the human military doctrine they call violence of action, a concept that no other species had even imagined before making contact with Earth." As the cadets filed out of the auditorium, their conversations were animated and urgent. None of them had expected their routine military tactics class to fundamentally challenge their understanding of what was possible in combat. Commander Zixtal remained at the podium, staring at the image of the unremarkable human marine. She remembered her conversation with the human military attaché, and his casual comment about how the Marines were considered pretty typical by Earth standards. She shuddered slightly, her scales rippling with involuntary movement. Tomorrow's lesson would be even more difficult to deliver, because tomorrow she would have to explain why the kill ratio of a single human Marine was actually the least frightening thing about human military capabilities. The auditorium was packed beyond capacity the next day. Word had spread throughout the academy about Commander Zixtal's revelations, and cadets from other classes had somehow managed to secure seats. The energy in the room was electric, with nervous conversations in dozens of languages creating a constant low hum. Commander Zixtal entered through the side door, her 4 arms carrying multiple data tablets and a sealed container marked with Galactic Council security clearances. She noticed immediately that several faculty members had also attended, including Professor Nalthok from Advanced Xenobiology and Captain Reeve from Strategic Studies. "I see our little discussion has attracted attention," she commented dryly, her mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. "Very well. Yesterday, we discussed the Kepler Station incident and the remarkable kill ratios achieved by human Marines. Today, we examine why those numbers represent just the surface of human military capability." She activated the main holographic display, which showed a detailed cross-section of a human body alongside comparable anatomical charts of other species. "Let's begin with biology," she announced. "Humans evolved from persistence predators, creatures that hunted by running their prey to exhaustion across vast distances. Their cardiovascular system, muscular structure, and metabolism are optimized for sustained activity under extreme stress." A Cathari cadet raised a tentacle. "But, Commander, that sounds like they'd make good messengers or scouts, not warriors." "An understandable misconception," the commander replied. "But consider what this means in practical terms. A human Marine can fight continuously for hours without significant performance degradation. We've documented engagements where individual humans maintained combat effectiveness for over 12 hours straight." She highlighted specific areas of the human anatomical display. "Their nervous system processes pain and fear differently than ours. Where most species experience escalating stress responses that degrade performance, humans can enter what they call combat flow states, where pain becomes background noise and complex tactical decisions happen automatically." Captain Reeve leaned forward in his seat, his Valdoran features showing intense concentration. As someone who had commanded troops in actual combat, he understood the implications better than most students. "Furthermore," Commander Zixtal continued, "humans possess something unique among sentient species, what their psychologists call adaptive aggression. They can consciously regulate their violence level from 0 to maximum lethality based on the situation's requirements." She brought up a new display showing brain scan data. Most species operate with fixed behavioral parameters. A hegemony stormtrooper is always a stormtrooper, thinking and acting within defined tactical patterns. A human Marine can be a diplomat, a teacher, a protector, or an unstoppable killing machine, switching between these modes instantly as needed. The silence in the auditorium was profound. Several cadets were taking notes frantically while others simply stared at the displays in growing unease. "But biology is only part of the equation," the commander said, moving to open the sealed container she had brought. "The truly terrifying aspect of human military effectiveness is their approach to warfare itself." She pulled out what appeared to be a simple field manual, its cover worn and marked with human text. "This is a basic training manual for human Marines. It was provided to the Council as part of standard military exchange protocols. I want to read you a passage from their fundamental combat doctrine." Commander Zixtal activated her translation device and began reading. The enemy's plans, equipment, and training are irrelevant. Superior numbers are irrelevant. Environmental advantages are irrelevant. There is only the mission and the willingness to pay any price to complete it. Every Marine is expendable. Every enemy is killable. Every obstacle is temporary. The Chixari cadets' compound eyes dilated with shock. They consider themselves expendable? Not just expendable, the commander clarified. They consider it an honor. Human military culture has a concept called death before dishonor that influences every tactical decision. A human Marine will continue fighting even when victory is impossible because surrender or retreat is literally worse than death to them. She flipped through pages of the manual, highlighting various sections. Their small unit tactics are built around something they call violence of action, the principle that overwhelming aggression applied at the correct moment can overcome any disadvantage. They don't fight to win. They fight to utterly destroy their enemies. A Valderan cadet interrupted, his metallic skin reflecting his agitation. Commander, this sounds like the behavior of primitives, not a civilized military force. Commander Zixtal's secondary eyes focused on him, while her primary eyes continued scanning the room. That's exactly what I thought. Until I witnessed a human training exercise. The holographic display changed to show what appeared to be security footage from a military installation. This recording was taken at their facility on Luna, Earth's moon. It shows a standard qualification exercise for new Marines. The footage showed a complex obstacle course filled with moving targets, environmental hazards, and tactical challenges. A single human figure moved through it with fluid efficiency, engaging targets with precise weapon fire while navigating obstacles that would challenge most species' finest athletes. The scenario requires the Marine to rescue simulated hostages while eliminating an unknown number of enemies in a multi-level facility, the commander narrated. Watch carefully. The human on screen moved with a strange combination of caution and aggression, checking corners methodically while advancing at a pace that seemed impossibly fast. When targets appeared, the response was instantaneous. Identify, aim, fire, move. No hesitation, no wasted motion. This particular Marine completed the course in 4 minutes and 17 seconds, Commander Zixtal noted. He eliminated 37 targets without harming any hostages and sustained no simulated injuries. The footage ended, and the commander faced her audience. That Marine had been in their corps for exactly 6 months. By our standards, he was barely past basic training. Professor Nalthok stood up from his seat, his tall frame commanding attention. Commander, I've studied human physiology extensively for the Council's Xenobiology Department. While they're certainly formidable, these performance levels seem beyond their biological limitations. An excellent observation, the commander replied, which brings us to perhaps the most disturbing aspect of human military doctrine, their enhancement protocols. She activated a new display showing what appeared to be a standard human Marine, but with detailed overlays highlighting various modifications and augmentations. Every human Marine receives what they term basic conditioning during their training, she explained. Chemical treatments to enhance reflexes, surgical improvements to sensory organs, genetic therapy to increase muscle density and bone strength. What they consider basic would be classified as elite super soldier enhancement by any other species. The cadets exchanged worried glances. The implications were staggering. But even that isn't the most concerning part, Commander Zixtal continued. Their enhancement protocols are voluntary. Every human who becomes a Marine chooses to undergo these modifications. They volunteer to become living weapons. A Zephyrian cadet in the back row called out, Commander, how many humans have undergone these enhancements? What's the size of their military? The commander's mandibles clicked nervously. According to official council records, the human Marine Corps numbers approximately 200,000 active personnel. She paused, letting that number sink in. However, those are just their elite forces. Their total military numbers nearly 50 million trained personnel. And those numbers don't include their planetary defense forces, their naval crews, or their special operations units. The auditorium erupted in whispered conversations as cadets tried to process this information. 50 million enhanced warriors from a death world, all trained in doctrines that prioritize total victory over personal survival. Furthermore, the commander continued once the noise died down, human military service is voluntary. Every one of those 50 million chose to become a warrior. They weren't drafted, coerced, or programmed. They volunteered to become instruments of destruction. Captain Reeves spoke up from his seat. Commander, what does this mean for the Council's military balance? If humans can field forces of this size and capability... Commander Zixtal's expression grew even more serious. That question was raised at the highest levels of Council security, which is why I was granted access to classified human military assessments. She activated her personal security codes and brought up a display marked with multiple classification warnings. What I'm about to show you is the actual strategic assessment of human military capabilities, prepared by our best analysts after extensive observation. The display showed force projection charts, technological capability assessments, and strategic doctrine analyses. The numbers were staggering. According to our calculations, the current human military could successfully engage and defeat any 3 Council member species simultaneously, she announced. Their force projection capabilities, enhanced by their willingness to accept massive casualties, make them effectively undefeatable in conventional warfare. The silence that followed was deafening. But that assessment was based on their current revealed capabilities, the commander continued. Tomorrow, I'll share what our intelligence services discovered about human military technologies that remain classified. And I'll explain why the Council's Xenopsychology Department believes we may have fundamentally misunderstood what humans consider military service. As cadets filed out of the auditorium, their conversations were subdued and worried. The reality of humanity's military might was beginning to sink in, and many were starting to understand why their professors had been reluctant to discuss Earth's newest council members in detail. Commander Zixtal remained behind, staring at the classified displays still glowing above the stage. The third day's revelations would be the most disturbing of all, because she would have to explain that everything she had shared so far represented only what humans were willing to reveal to their new galactic allies. What they kept hidden was far worse. The third day's gathering had grown beyond the auditorium's capacity. Council security had been forced to set up overflow viewing areas in adjacent halls, and the session was being broadcast to military academies across 12 star systems. High-ranking officials from various species had arrived overnight, including Admiral Korth of the Hegemony Fleet and Supreme Tactical Advisor Yilseth from the Valdoran Military Command. Commander Zixtal entered to find cameras, recording devices, and real-time translation equipment filling every available space. The weight of what she was about to reveal seemed to press down on her as she approached the podium. Before we begin today's final session, she announced, I must inform you that certain information will be classified at the highest levels immediately following this briefing. Council security has determined that full disclosure is necessary for proper threat assessment, but distribution will be restricted. She activated multiple security protocols, and privacy shields shimmered to life around the auditorium. What I'm about to share represents 3 years of intelligence gathering, diplomatic inquiry, and careful analysis of human military capabilities. Some of it was provided voluntarily by human officials. Some was discovered through observation. And some, she paused meaningfully, was learned the hard way. The main display activated, showing what appeared to be a peaceful star system with several inhabited worlds. 6 months ago, the Kyber Syndicate made what they considered a routine raid on a human mining colony in the Proxima system. The Syndicate had successfully raided dozens of systems belonging to various council species. Their tactics were proven, their equipment was superior, and they vastly outnumbered the colonists. A new image appeared. A fleet of sleek, dangerous-looking vessels surrounding what seemed like a defenseless mining station. The Syndicate sent 47 warships against a mining station with no military defenses. The colonists had 6 civilian transport vessels and approximately 3,000 personnel, most of them families. Admiral Korth leaned forward in his seat, his massive frame radiating intensity. What was the outcome, Commander? The human colonists sent a single transmission to Earth, Commander Zixtal replied. It consisted of one word: Wolverines. She let that sink in before continuing. Within 18 hours, a single human ship arrived at the system. Not a fleet, one ship. It was designated as a rapid response vessel in human military terminology. The display showed the newcomer, a ship that seemed almost primitive compared to modern council vessels, with angular lines and obvious weapon emplacements. It looked deadly but not particularly advanced. The human ship opened communications with the Syndicate fleet and made an offer: release the colonists and leave the system, or be destroyed, the commander continued. The Syndicate leader laughed. 47 ships against one seemed like favorable odds. A Chixari cadet raised a limb nervously. Commander, what happened when the fighting started? There was no fighting, Commander Zixtal replied, her mandibles clicking with what might have been dark humor. The human ship transmitted a single coded message, then waited exactly 30 minutes. When the deadline expired, all 47 Syndicate vessels simply ceased to exist. The auditorium erupted in confused murmurs. Several faculty members stood up, demanding clarification. Ceased to exist? Repeated Professor Nalthok. Commander, please be more specific. There was no explosion, no debris field, no energy signatures consistent with known weapons, the commander explained. One moment the Syndicate fleet was there, the next moment there were 47 empty spaces where ships used to be. Our sensors detected a brief quantum disturbance, then nothing. She brought up tactical analysis charts showing the sensor readings from that engagement. Council investigation teams found trace particles consistent with matter conversion, but the technology required to accomplish this exceeds our understanding by several centuries. Supreme Tactical Advisor Yilseth spoke up, her crystalline features reflecting disbelief. Commander, are you suggesting humans possess weapons technology that can simply erase matter from existence? That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Commander Zixtal confirmed. But it gets worse. When our teams requested information about this technology from human authorities, they were told it represented outdated defensive systems, scheduled for replacement with more efficient alternatives. The silence that followed was profound and uncomfortable. This led to an urgent council investigation into human technological capabilities, the commander continued. What we discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about technological development and military strategy. She activated a new display showing comparative technology assessments. Humans joined the Council 50 cycles ago with what appeared to be primitive technology: chemical rockets, kinetic weapons, basic nuclear power. We assumed they were a young species catching up to galactic standards. The display showed Earth's technology advancing at an impossible rate. In 50 years, they've progressed from barely achieving orbit around their homeworld to possessing weapons that can erase matter from reality. Their rate of technological advancement is approximately 300 times faster than any other known species. A Valdoran cadet interrupted, his voice trembling. How is that possible? Even with their enhanced intelligence, there are physical laws governing research and development. That's what we thought, the commander replied, until we learned about human black projects and their approach to military research. She highlighted specific sections of the technological assessment. Humans don't just develop weapons, they develop entirely new branches of physics to create weapons. They've discovered particle interactions that our best scientists insist are impossible. She paused to let this information settle before delivering the next revelation. Furthermore, every piece of technology they've shared with the Council represents deliberate disclosure of obsolete systems. Their actual current military technology remains completely classified. Admiral Korth's voice boomed across the auditorium. Commander, what level of threat does this represent to Council security? Commander Zixtal's expression grew grim. Sir, according to our best estimates, humans currently possess sufficient military capability to successfully engage the combined forces of all Council member species simultaneously. The auditorium exploded into chaos. Cadets shouted questions, faculty members demanded verification, and officials from various species began urgent communications with their homeworlds. Order! Commander Zixtal commanded, her voice cutting through the noise. There's more! The crowd reluctantly settled down, but the tension was now palpable. The technology demonstration at Proxima was not an isolated incident, she continued. Our intelligence services have documented 17 separate occasions where single human vessels have engaged and destroyed entire enemy fleets without sustaining damage. She brought up a star chart showing multiple incident locations. Each engagement demonstrated different technological capabilities. Weapons that ignore shields, defensive systems that render attacks ineffective, propulsion that allows instantaneous travel between star systems. A Cathari professor stood up shakily. Commander, if humans possess such overwhelming military superiority, why haven't they simply conquered the galaxy? The question hung in the air like a physical presence, and Commander Zixtal's expression became thoughtful. That question led to the most disturbing discovery of our entire investigation, she said slowly. We learned why humans joined the Council and what they consider their role in galactic civilization. She activated one final display, showing what appeared to be internal human military documents. According to classified communications between Earth Command and their colonial forces, humans view themselves as the galaxy's protectors. They joined the Council not to gain power or resources, but to stand guard against threats that other species cannot handle. The implications hit the assembled audience like a physical blow. You see, humans have been monitoring galactic communications since before they achieved spaceflight, the commander continued. They've been aware of the Council, of various species conflicts, of the constant threats facing civilized worlds. They developed their military capabilities specifically to deal with dangers that existing Council forces couldn't handle. She highlighted specific passages from the documents. The Kyber Syndicate, the Ravager Pirates, the Void Cult extremists. These weren't random threats that humans encountered. They were specific problems that humans decided to solve. A heavy silence fell over the auditorium as the full scope of human capabilities and intentions became clear. So to answer the original question that started this discussion, Commander Zixtal announced, the combat kill ratio of a single human Marine is theoretically unlimited, not because of their weapons, their enhancements, or their training, though all of these are formidable, but because humans as a species have decided that losing is not an acceptable option. She deactivated the displays and faced her audience directly. Humans don't fight wars. They solve problems. They don't seek victory. They impose reality, and they don't consider any sacrifice too great if it protects the civilizations they've chosen to defend. The commander gathered her materials and prepared to leave the stage. Class dismissed, and remember, everything you've learned here demonstrates why humanity's greatest weapon isn't their technology or their enhanced Marines. She paused at the exit, looking back at the stunned faces filling the auditorium. Their greatest weapon is their decision that nothing in the universe is more important than protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That kind of absolute moral certainty, backed by unlimited technological capability and an entire species willing to die before accepting defeat. Commander Zixtal's mandibles clicked one final time as she delivered her parting words. That's not just a military force. That's a galactic guardian service that happens to be staffed by the most dangerous species ever to achieve spaceflight. And they're on our side. As she left the auditorium, the silence behind her was complete. The cadets, faculty, and officials remained in their seats, processing the reality that their understanding of galactic power structures had just been completely rewritten. Humanity hadn't joined the galactic community as junior partners seeking guidance. They had arrived as protectors, armed with technologies beyond imagination and guided by principles that made them willing to face any threat to defend civilizations they barely knew. The galaxy had gained guardians. Whether that was reassuring or terrifying depended entirely on whether you considered yourself under their protection or standing in their way.